Now that our analysis is complete, let's take a look at writing up the conclusions section and the press release. I'm talking about these both at the same time because I see them as parallel activities. Everything that you do up through and including the conclusions section, that is, starting at the description, all the way through the analysis, and down through the conclusions, I consider a technical report, and a technical report that can be written for me. That is, for someone who knows and understands statistics. You can say technical things in a technical report. The press release needs to be written for an educated individual who has never had statistics. What I mean by that is I do not want you using esoteric statistical terms. You could use common terms like the mean or the median, but you probably want to avoid terms like the interquartile range. That is, terms that even someone with education would not know unless they had taken statistics. So you can write for an educated reader, but one that has not taken statistics. Now, why do I do that? It's because I want to make sure that you can explain what you've done in your analysis in non-statistical terms. In fact, that's one way of showing me that you really understand what you have done. When you can explain it and not repeat or mimic any statistical terms we've learned in class, that means you really understand the material and the concepts related to what we talked about in class. So going back to this idea of a technical section and a non-technical section, the conclusions and press release really should be saying the same thing. I see the press release as a rewrite of conclusions in non-statistical terms with one other addition. The press release needs to be a stand-alone section. What I mean by that is I should be able to take a pair of scissors and cut right up here on line 217, right between the press release and conclusions, separate out the press release, read it, and understand what the study was about and what you found in the study. So the press release will not start with a sentence like, "What we found was," because then it's not standalone. It has to start telling what the study is about and then work into the conclusions. So aside from that one little difference, the press release is really a restatement of your conclusions section, but in non-technical terms and simplified for the layperson who has not had statistics. So, with that in mind, let's look at the conclusions. What was the major thing we looked at here? It was to see if reading scores was related to SES. So that's what I'm opening with. I don't even mention the differences in SES composition, although you're welcome to do that if you wish. This illustrates that I see the conclusion section as really distilling down to the main ideas. So I would not give you points off if you started in your conclusions by giving the main idea about the composition of SES, but nor would I give you points off for not putting that in, because really this research report is about looking at the relationship of reading scores to SES composition. So let's look at what I wrote. I examined whether reading test scores are related to socioeconomic classification. The answer is yes. As socioeconomic status increases, the reading test scores also increase. This is true across the range of the reading test score spectrum. For example, The mean for the middle SES students is about 4 points higher than for low SES students. Similarly, the mean for the students in the high SES group is about 4 points higher than for the middle SES group. This upward shift has very little influence on the width of the distribution of scores, so it is an across-the-board shift. Now, notice that I did not repeat everything I said in the analysis above, but I did repeat some of it. That is, I stole some key lines and put them down here in the conclusions. But these conclusions are the place where any reader, any technical reader that is, should be able to go and really see the distilling or summary of the findings. You ask the research question up in the description, you answer it down in the conclusions, and in between is the analysis to show how you got from the question to the answer. Note that I also addressed the secondary question here of relationship of SES to ethnic groups. I will let you read that on your own. Now let's drop down to the press release. Notice how I start. This is a standalone section. Researchers at the University of South Carolina used a national sample of 200 high school seniors to study the relationship of socioeconomic status to reading test scores. Now, I put this as though it were what you might read in a newspaper article. You could do it as though this was being posted on a news blog. You can use different formats, whatever makes sense to you, and you're welcome to use your creativity. So I have quotes from myself. These findings are important, stated lead analyst Mike Seaman, because SES widely varies and could be related to school resources and instructional environment. And so on. And so I go through and I provide information, even some specific information. Note this sentence. For example, the percentage of African American seniors in low-income homes is over 3 times the percentage of whites in low-income homes. Then I finish with the main finding. And I even talk about how the average reading test scores for seniors from high SES is about 8 points higher than that from low SES. I didn't use the 444 because I thought that was a little bit too much, but I still am being specific. It's really easy, I find, for students to think that just because they're writing for the educated but non-statistical reader that they shouldn't provide specific information or that it might be confusing. No, specific information doesn't need to be technical. And people are going to want to know. If I simply said higher SES has higher reading scores, yes, that's some information. But if I say 8 points higher for high SES than low, that's even more specific information. And it's information that can be understood and digested by the educated reader. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So looking over the whole report, and to do that, let's go ahead and call up the preview. We have our title. Uh-oh, what happened here? I ended up getting a box in here that should not be there. Let me see if I change something without thinking about it. Show output only. There, it's gone. Not sure what I did. But here I have the title, the author's name, the description, which again should provide the research question, set the stage for what it is you're going to do, the source of data. Then we come to analysis, which, as you know, was broken into really 3 different analyses. And each analysis had a figure and statistics The statistics could be in the narrative if there's only a few of them, or if there are more of them, should be in a table. The tables and figures should be clearly labeled in number, figures for graphs, tables for statistics, starting with the number 1 for figure, starting with the number 1 for table. Then, this is followed by our conclusions section, which can still be technical, followed by a parallel section, a press release, which should provide those same conclusions, but in non-technical terms, and should be a standalone section that could be cut out and still make sense. So that's it. That's our first instructor report. Now, we will not be going through the instructor report every time this way, although I will be providing instructor reports. If you have questions in the future about a report that I construct that I don't go over in detail, including if you have R code questions, feel free to come to the Research Cafe and ask. But once we get beyond our review, which is this week and next week, then we'll start looking at new material, and the videos are going to focus more on learning new concepts than on how to actually do the report, although I will be showing you a report each time to show you how we take what we learned about concepts and then do an analysis and report on that. I hope this has been instructional. As always, you can ask questions in the cafe if you have any. I'll look forward to seeing you later.